right, everybody, welcome back to the BJJ101 STOREROOM podcast. This is episode 37, and we have another amazing guest in Kellie Thompson. I made sure to get that one right. Kellie, we always start with like a super generic question. I always want to just like get people to introduce themselves. We know you a little bit from the gym, but it's always interesting just to hear about like a kind of like a little bit more depth about the person, where they grew up, their childhood, and then kind of like getting involved in sports, and particularly like where you kind of got introduced to martial arts as well.
Yeah, cool. So I grew up in Brisbane, living around like Kedron and Chermside. So my mum lived in Chermside, my dad lived in Kedron. I have an identical twin sister and an older brother. So I lived with them, and my brother's a bit older, so he kind of left when I was left home when I was like 13. So
okay.
It was just me and my sister sort of living together.
How much older is your brother?
He's almost 6 years older.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's in the army.
Yeah.
Captain. He's always like lived around the place. Not really lived in Brisbane since he was like 18 or something. So, so grew up in Brisbane. As a kid, I did like a few sports. I did athletics from when I was 5 until sort of throughout high school. But by the time I got to high school, I sort of preferred to just do javelin. So
javelin.
I had preferred to throw things. And then I also did cricket in high school as well, which is like really different to the boys' game. Boys' game is like super long and like play on weekends and like, you know, in the summer heat and stuff. We still play in summer, but it's like 2 hours on a Wednesday afternoon. And it's really like loose and, you know, no one's concentrating. So it's a lot more fun. There's no like, I didn't really know what banter was until like, you know, later in high school. There's no like shit talking or anything. Like everyone's really nice to each other. Really different to the boys' game. And I also did rowing as well. Okay. Yeah.
Where did you go to school? Because
I went to Girls Grammar.
Okay.
Yeah. And just in high school, so I didn't have like the 5, 6, and 7 or something when I went there. So I didn't really want to do rowing at first, but it's so much easier to do. So my sister wanted to do it. Yeah. And I didn't really have this idea of, I guess, doing it at first. I think I wanted to do volleyball or something else. There's so many sports at the school that you have to do something. Yeah. But it's like so much choice as well. So I did rowing, and I was never really like great at sports, but I always did something and multiple things. So I was doing like athletics, cricket, and rowing, like all
rowing's pretty heavy duty though.
Yeah. So I remember when I was like younger, I think there was like some news segment or something about this like really overweight guy. And he was like so overweight he had to be like lifted on to this like, you know, scale to be weighed, but he was still technically healthy because of like the amount he did like competitive rowing when he was younger. And I was like, fuck, like that must be really good for you if you do that. So it was super hard, and everyone thinks it's like a upper body sport, but it's not. It's like lower body. A lot
of leg drive.
A lot of leg drive. So it's like legs, body, arm bodies, legs. It's just like a rocking back and forth motion. It was really nice spending time in the river and stuff.
Therapeutic.
Yeah, it was actually. Yeah, when we're not like, you know, dying.
So did you have to like get up early and do all that type of stuff? On the river and
in winter too. So the boys do it in summer, so it's okay, balmy by that time. But in winter, it's like really cold.
How often were you training, doing rowing and all these things?
I think
they had like different seasons and stuff.
Yeah, so rowing was in winter. Athletics, I think, was either spring or autumn. I feel like it was. I can't remember which one. And then cricket was in summer. Yeah. So I think there may have been like, but I think rowing was like crossed over with athletics at one point, and so it was sort of like a balance between.
How often were you training, like weekly and stuff, with all these?
Probably at least 2 times a week. I think 3 times when it was like crossing over, and then there would be like the weekend for rowing. We'd do rowing on Saturday.
Yeah, like games or
events. Before like regattas and stuff started, we would just do like training on the river on Saturday mornings. Which was super nice because then they had like the markets and stuff near the shed, and the girls don't have their own shed. We just rent from the boys' shed, so it's like on that sort of straight bit in West End. The sheds are all like sort of scattered around the place and stuff, but yeah, it's a really nice area as well in West End. So it's cool, like chill out there.
That's an interesting experience. Like those are some pretty
mixed bag of sports.
But like I think it depends on the schooling and stuff. So like obviously you went to like a girls' private school, whatever, which is you know, pretty fortunate, and that's awesome totally. And great. And they have some cool options of sport.
Yeah, you could do like rock climbing. I think equestrian if you had a horse, but don't have a horse. So yeah, I was like one of those places like because you're paying so much money a year, if you didn't do something, then like your parents should get off you. Because,
they get upset.
You have to take advantage of everything while you go there. So
you mentioned something that I found really interesting, and it happened to a lot of people in my circle of friends that sometimes you don't even know about the sport, but someone like a friend or family member will actually go, "Oh, can you come and do it with me?"
Yeah,
and that happens all the time. You know, like to this day, I remember I put many friends to train jiu-jitsu. They didn't even know what it was too well, and then they come. And I think there's a component that the person feels a lot more comfortable to come, you know what I mean? Because they're going to do something different, but at least they have someone that they're going to have a laugh. They know someone that...
Anytime I did something new, it was generally with my sister, because we stayed in the same room until we were like 19. So like always together. So yeah, I think I wouldn't have branched out and done that sort of thing. Or I don't know, it was hard to like do something new without her, I think. Yeah. Which is like an unusual sort of sibling relationship, I think, for most people.
but I think being like, you know, twins or whatever,
it's different.
It's different. Yeah. I think that's actually really cool. I think a lot of people, man, I don't know how, like, this is very common, but a lot of people have a lot of conflict between siblings and stuff like that. And it's like, these are some of the only people that like actually care about you in the world.
Right? I don't understand families that they have siblings that hate each other. Yeah. Like, how is that possible?
I understand, but it's so common. Yeah. People just get like emotional, and the emotions kind of affect, you know, the relationships you have with people and stuff like that. But yeah, that's actually really cool. Talk about that a little bit. What was it like always having kind of like a, you know, like a companion or like a, you know, a partner in crime or whatever to go and do everything with?
It went beyond high school. We even like worked together at the same pub for a little bit. So, but we were never like that boisterous. I think we tried it once to like swap names and see if people would notice a difference and stuff. But we can't like keep up the gag, you know. We're too honest, I think. I think it was awesome. Like, I think, but it also made it really hard to do things independently. Like, just like kind of always have that attachment that you kind of need someone to lean on a little bit. But well, like, by the time, like in primary school, we were always in the same class. Mum wanted it that way because if you've got like two kids in the same age doing like different things, different sports, all sorts of stuff, it just makes it really hard, especially when she was single and like, you know, there's only one of her really to like, I mean, Dad like would pick us up from sport and all that sort of stuff, but to like organise all that sort of stuff on her own was a little difficult. So she always like requested that we'd be in the same class.
It's a parent dream come true.
Like, oh, it'd be good for them to be separated and all that sort of stuff. She was like, nope. So, but by the time we were in high school, we chose different subjects and all that sort of stuff. So it was sort of like a gradual thing from there. And the only sport that we did the same was rowing. But even then, we weren't even like in the same crew or anything like that. She's a bit taller and stronger, so she was in the first 8 and I was in the second 8. So he was like small enough to be the cox instead of an actual rower. So,
as twins, like you have more experience. Like we don't have that experience. So can you enlighten me here? So as you guys grew a little bit older, you guys got like separate like personalities more and tastes, and now you guys have completely different like interests. Or
so she listens to completely different music than me. She has tattoos, I don't. Like, all this sort of stuff. She's into different guys, like all this sort of... it's very different now. But it's the same, like we have... people always ask, like, do you have this, like, twin telepathy sort of thing? And it's like, no, but yes at the same time, because we'll remember, like, movie references at the exact same moment or something like that, or we'll ask the exact same question at the same time. Like, it's weird in that sense, but it's not like I can feel her pain or anything like that. It's not that sort of thing. But because we have the same like shared experience, something will remind us of like the same event in our past or something like that. So really connected in that way. But we've definitely...
You still have a very close relationship with her?
Yeah.
And how did you branch into jiu-jitsu? Because jiu-jitsu you try by yourself.
That's it. And that's like why I love it as well, because I did athletics when I was really young and I didn't really like it that much. Like I hate running. Any sort of like standing sport. Not that much of a fan of, I think. And so I'd heard about it. I started listening to Joe Rogan in like 2017, and he really like advocated for it. And I was like, oh, this martial art that is good for small people, and there's no striking or anything like that. So I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. But that still doesn't really answer why I got into like wanted to do a martial art per se.
Yeah. Have you tried? Did you try any other martial arts before that?
No, and I wouldn't say I was like interested in any other kind of martial, even like the popular ones that was like a kid, or kung fu or something like that.
Yeah, kickboxing.
Yeah, anything like that. And I don't really watch sport, so it's not like I found out about it through the UFC or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I started like working full time once I'd graduated from uni, and started getting like really stiff, sitting in an office chair all day and stuff, and just needed the sport.
Yeah.
Rowing was I found it too cliquey outside of high school.
Okay.
Like, girls were already really advanced. They were much like bigger than me, so they were already just naturally better at the sport anyway.
So it was a bit of like a social
Yeah,
barrier.
just like they'd already been rowing together outside of school, like off season and stuff, because they'd go to states or nationals or whatever together. So it was already that sort of like group. It was really hard to like break into.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to do it. I've never really wanted to do sport out of like competition, just always passion. Yeah, and wanting to stay fit and all that sort of stuff. So,
which I think is the majority actually. Like most people are not. You've talked about this before. Like even with jiu-jitsu, like competitors are like maybe 2-3% of all the athletes that actually do jiu-jitsu. So yeah, it's interesting.
So I always did sport, so I wanted to do something.
Yeah.
And it's quite amazing, like when you think about. I at one point I was working in an office as well, and it's really easy to at the end of the day go, oh, I'm too tired, because you actually do get super mentally tired.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. But this cycle will make you, after a while, makes your life like kind of almost miserable.
Yeah. If you don't do anything about it.
If you don't do anything, and a lot of people, because it does make you tired, and you get into this cycle, you stop doing anything that makes you feel better, like sport-wise, and it gets to a point you're like, you know what, I have to change this. You know what I mean? Some people have that vision and go, look, I have to change this. So when I was working in the office, I felt that like, and I like, I don't care how I feel. I'm just gonna go, and 3 times a week I'm gonna do it. You know what I mean? Sometimes I would like take myself. I'm walking, sleeping here, but I'll get there, and then my life gets like, it's almost like. It creates a purpose, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, otherwise you just like work, home, work, eat, home, work, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, And
especially if you're not surrounded by like work colleagues who also do some sort of exercise as well. Like my office is pretty good. There a lot of people cycle in and stuff, and my boss is sort of like a good role model. He's like, in his 50s and stuff, and he's really athletic and stuff. So I always had like people around me who
push that lifestyle a little bit.
Yeah, exactly, and didn't like condone sort of like a sedentary lifestyle or anything like that. So
that is super helpful.
Yeah,
I agree.
exactly.
The culture of the place you work.
So what was the process to starting jiu-jitsu? Like you started listening to
so that was like appealing, and then so then like being sore at work and stuff, and then the other aspect as well was just sort of my experience with harassment in public as well.
Okay.
So it's not just like catcalling, it's like getting smacked on the ass by some random person.
Yeah.
Like that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And when I was, and it's not like people sort of say like they do a martial art, this fight or flight sort of mode kicks in or something like that. And I disagree. I think that's if you even have that reaction. I think your first reaction is going to be to freeze if something happens to you.
Yeah.
At least from my perspective anyway. It might be different for guys, but I think girls most of the time will just get too, confounded about the situation. Like they won't actually do anything. And that's what happened to me once. So I was on the bus when I was 13, going to like a school award ceremony, and this guy who's like really, really big sat next to me, like, and kind of cornered me on the bus, and I was like, oh, please don't sit
like
next to me.
an adult male.
Yeah. And I'm in like school uniform and stuff. It's like November, super hot, and I'm in like a blazer and stockings because it's this like formal ceremony and stuff. He sits next to me, and I'm looking out the window, and he puts his hand on my knee. Okay. And I like look towards him, and then he took it off quickly, and I just did nothing. I was too scared to even say anything to the bus driver or like speak out at all. Yeah. And so always like I think from then on, and then just general sort of like drunken people going out nightclubbing and stuff, just sort of harassment in that sort of way. And it wasn't even like that I wanted to fight back, even though sometimes I did. It
Yeah.
was also that I was sick of like ruminating on it afterwards.
Yeah, you don't feel comfortable or safe.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, just always afterwards like stuck with these like thoughts in my head, like
I should have done this, or what should I have done? Yeah,
exactly, yeah, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, the reason I wanted to do jiu-jitsu was because I felt like it was that like a good outlet for that sort of like negative energy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what got me into.
What was the actual like
Amazing.
starting, like committing to the classes? Because we've talked about this with other people too, and you know, the last guest about the same thing. They would run around in the park and they're like, well, what if someone, you know, attacked me at night? What would I do? They don't know. So, and everyone has the same experience. Like they're like, all right, I'm gonna go there, and then first time they park their car and look, and then they go home, and then they drive around in the circle and look, and then they go home, and then eventually they work up the courage to kind of go in. What was that like for you? Like actually going into the gym and
so I actually made my boyfriend at the time come with me and sign up. So he did it for like a month or something, but wasn't for him.
Yeah.
So again, I think it comes back to having a twin. I sort of needed someone to come with me. I think most girls do that too. Like most girls that sign up come with a friend.
A friend or their partner.
Yeah,
Very true.
exactly.
Very true.
So yeah, I don't know if I would have probably done it on my own.
No.
I'm not sure, but
You still kind of
as soon as I found out that I liked it and
Yeah.
it gave me that energy outlet that I needed, then it didn't matter whether he didn't stick around. So it didn't matter in the end. You know what I mean? So. I think that was probably it. Just
Do you know, like, I started jiu-jitsu because there was fights happening too close to me.
Yeah.
Right. So similar idea of like I need to protect myself.
Yeah.
But what I found about this freezing thing is that jiu-jitsu, because you're actually gonna be like literally touching, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A very the space that society is completely different in jiu-jitsu. Like, you're completely in each other's like space and face, and rolling. So that will bring a certain level of comfort, right? So if you ever exposed to this situation, it's not that you're going to be able to deal with everything, but you're going to feel more comfortable.
You're normalizing like what would normally be a taboo.
Exactly.
So the chances of you not freeze because this is usual for you, you know what I mean? It's not something you know and seeing that you're actually gonna like freak out a bit more.
And it's like as long as you can do either fight or flight, as long as you don't freeze, I think that's the goal for me. Is that like, and I still don't really think that even if I was like confronted with that kind of situation, that I'm totally confident I wouldn't freeze, even at like the level I'm at now. If that makes sense.
But you could freeze, but maybe you could go and speak up. Which is
exactly.
Speaking up is not freezing. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe you can freeze for a little bit, but then you would do something.
Exactly.
Like that's
progress.
That's progress, correct.
Better
And
than,
that's not freezing completely. Freezing is doing nothing forever, you know?
Exactly.
So
I don't think people should be hard on them for that type of thing. Like the thing is like everything's kind of like a trained skill. Like whether it's cooking or doing jiu-jitsu or reacting to a high stress environment, like it's normal for people to go, oh, what do I do? Because it all comes out of like this place of survival. Or what I feel threatened, I feel uncomfortable. What's going to make me survive the most? That's what your like subconscious brain does. And the only way to like avoid that or build a skill to do differently is to go and do jiu-jitsu and practice things under a stressful environment, or put yourself in that confronting face-to-face position or the physical touching of another human being and that type of thing. And I've listened to some other people talk about it and how uncomfortable it is, but just putting yourself through that uncomfort to find a more normalized kind of reaction to it is going to help with all these types of things. So it is challenging, and I think I find it impressive. I think it's like admirable of people to go and seek out that kind of challenge, because nothing's going to change in your life until you actually commit to going like, all right, listen, I know that I want to improve this thing. I need to improve this thing because I don't want these scenarios to happen anymore. Or maybe I just want to improve my fitness or the work stuff. It doesn't matter the reason, but I'm going to go and do something difficult. And it doesn't matter how you get here either. If you need 12 friends to bring you along, or if you need someone to give you an ice cream like your mum did when you were younger, I'm going to give you an ice cream. to get you to start doing it. Like, trick yourself in whatever way you need to get there and start it. You're still like taking on challenge and like responsibility for the thing you want to kind of improve on. So I think it's admirable of all people to just go and seek out some type of challenging aspect. And like, this is what I do for work and my life and everything about jiu-jitsu. And I think that's probably like one of the few things where you can really deep dive into so many different flaws and areas of your psychology and your mind and stuff. And it's just super interesting for
and
how it improves people in life and everything.
The other motivation for starting too was like the advice generally given to girls about how to defend themselves was bullshit.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Like, or if you're in a car park and someone's like, hold your keys between your hands. Like, I just think that's rubbish advice. And like, it's just
not realistic.
Yeah, exactly. And like, we did one like self-defense class in high school, and it was like with the PE teacher, so it wasn't even like an external expert or anything like that. And it wasn't even, it was just like yelling no. That was the thing, like that's going to do anything. And then if someone comes up behind you and tries to choke you or something like that, turn your head to the side so you open your airway. And then as soon as I did jiu-jitsu, I was like, you're not being choked, your airway's not being choked, it's your arteries. So
you're learning all this
stuff. I felt so lied to. I was like, what the hell? It's so silly. So
but that stuff sells. Like we've talked about this stuff before, like this like whole like empowerment stuff is a lot of marketing bullshit. Like the realities of a lot of the stuff that is empowerment is just complete bullshit, fallacy, lies.
Yeah.
This shit doesn't work. It's not good for your life. Doesn't make you feel better. It's actually going to be detrimental to you, because if you truly believe that if you are a 50-kilo woman and you get attacked by a 100-kilo dude and you putting your keys in between your knuckles and punching him once, it's going to stop him from hurting you or taking advantage of you or doing whatever violation he wants to do to you, is insanity.
Yeah.
And like, man, I've had literal like arguments with girls or women that train other martial arts and like, no, but I've done this many years of kung fu and this and that. I'm sorry, listen. At best, if the guy's double your weight, I don't care how much experience you have, you're lucky if you can survive. If this is a real situation. You're not going to beat up 3 guys in a row, but like, but in the street, I can punch their groin and do this. And I'm like, and they can do that too. Like, why? What? I don't know where this... And I think it's a little bit of like propaganda, like movies and superhero movies and all this stuff and beating up 5 people at a time and everything. But the realities of like violence and self-defense versus sports is also extremely different too, because somebody that's really trying to hurt you, there's no rules of engagement. There's no like, oh, well, I'm not allowed to grip here or do this. People are going to do anything and everything to hurt you. And there's no boundaries. And if someone's bigger and stronger than you, get the hell away from there. Don't engage with them, get away. And we did a whole component on self-defense and stuff like that. And even just like training self-defense and stuff like that, you need to do this stuff like every week regularly. Otherwise, why do you think you can do like a month block of self-defense or like a 1-day course, or even talk to people that do police officer stuff and it's their job and they do one like component a year of like a 2-3 day course of how to manipulate and control somebody else? How do you think this is going to be an ingrained automatic response if you do it
a couple of times
a year or for 12 hours a year or something? That's impossible.
And just like every time there's an incident or some kind of violence against women or something, there's never this like sense of responsibility that girls need to learn how to defend themselves. You know what I mean? Like, it's always like, oh, they need to change their behavior or something like that. You need to make public spaces safer for women and all that sort of stuff. There's never this conversation about, well, why don't you actually, if you're that afraid that someone is going to come and attack you in a car park, why don't you learn self-defense? There's never that bridge between like having this fear and actually doing something about it. Well, it's very uncommon. Well,
that's why it's such a amazing act that you did it. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people do that. They try to do something about it. You know what I mean? And that's a very important thing to carry on in life. A skill to like, look, I have an issue here. How can I address? How can I make me feel better? That's being accountable. You know what I mean? I think it's super helpful to move forward.
I don't know about the self-defense stuff though. Like, I think self-defense is a little bit of a unrealistic approach to reality. Like,
In what sense do you mean?
Sorry?
What do you mean, though?
Like, I just think this whole idea of self-defense, like, I don't think self-defense is real. I don't. I think you're either skilled or you're not skilled. And it's, particularly when it comes to, like, female self-defense, I think it's really difficult to do that in a safe way. Because, again, like, when women are kind of put into a scenario where it's really serious, like life or death kind of self-defense, like someone's attacking you, I don't know what amount of skill is actually going to save you. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It might make you survive for an extra minute or 2 minutes. Maybe that'll mean your survival. But when someone's physically so much more powerful than you, and generally, like, if you look at, you know, what is, you know, violence and crime and stuff like that, it's generally male perpetrators.
Yeah.
Even, like, men are, you know, victims of crime more than women as well, but it's always male perpetrators. If you're a 50-kilo dude and you're attacked by a 100-kilo guy, it's the same idea. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's possible for you to learn enough skill to make up that amount of strength and power and stuff like that.
I think doing the sport at least makes you realise what that situation feels like.
That's important. I agree with that.
Like, that it makes you real. It gets rid of this, like, jaded idea that if you're a 50-kilo girl, that you can, you know, outfight a 70 or 80 or however many kilo guy. It gives you a sense of reality of that, what you're actually capable of. And then sets you up for, you know, to have it, you know, actually handle the situation, I think. So
I agree with you. So the self-defense is not only just counter with a certain position.
Yeah, the physical component.
It's not not freeze completely or freeze for a shorter period of time. That you can still function and think a little bit more, and then perhaps you're going to scream, perhaps you're going to go along with whatever is requested to a little bit so you can find another opportunity. So you're not completely, you know, like completely taken away by the situation. So
learning the strategy. This
so
is the thing. This is what I think jiu-jitsu is. What you're saying, like it deepens your awareness of reality, and it gives you a deeper understanding of how you can strategize to achieve your goal. Yeah, because that's what you're doing.
And sometimes the goal is run.
Exactly.
Get out of there.
Get the hell out of there. Scream. Whatever.
And it's not like, look, I've been in a demo team. I'll give you an example. I've been in a demo team for self-defense, and I learned self-defense from a guy that was the best. That's actually one of the main things that made me start jiu-jitsu. Was the fights that were happening like on the street. Plus, I went to the class of a guy called Silvio Berenghi, which is a very famous family in Brazil, and they are very strong on self-defense. And I saw one of his classes teaching self-defense, and I was like, man, this is what I need for my to feel safe. Yeah. So I start training, and I start doing so much. I got into the demo team, a kids demo team. You know what I mean? Like we go to schools, we go to things like that. Yeah. No, it was really good. Saved my life a couple times. You know what I mean? Like as a teenager. And one day I was in a party, there was metal detector, and one guy, anyway, like there's a story behind, like there's a bit of a long story that you keep thinking why. Maybe the guy thought I was a police officer, like plain clothes. Maybe he thought I was, you know, the stories you keep ruminating, you know, for the time. But this guy we're on a dance floor, this guy gets a pistol from his socks. All right, and the other guy get a pistol from his back. One put it in my face, like here, and one put it in my back. So this is the middle of the dance floor. The dance floor goes like open up like that. Yeah. And I am with all my demo team self-defense skills, right? You know, like against this, against that, and you know, so you train for defense against a gun, defense against a wood. But I remember it's kind of funny because the guys are souped, like it looks at least like they've been on drugs big time, and they want me to lay down, right? And I'm like, man, I'm not laying down here, man. I'm not gonna lay down here. There's no way in the world I'll lay down. So I remember, like, so that's what I mean. Like I wasn't frozen. I was kind of like that. I was thinking about it, and then I swear God, all I remember was my coach, because we all, like, you know, when we're doing all the demo, the self-defense, there was always like, oh, how about a gun? And I remember he's saying, run, doing like this.
Zigzag.
And that's exactly what I did. You know what I mean? Like, and and then we go into the entrance. I had a friend with me, and then as soon as we got to the entrance, I spoke to a few of the security guards, and my friend like, let's now go and get them. I was like, man, I can't even go back there. I have to go home. Now 1 week I was eating just like this. I couldn't even look my parents. Yeah. And that's what I was like, man. But you know, that's what I was saying. Like it's about self-defense and training jiu-jitsu will give you a little bit more clear mind,
composure and clarity,
so you can think for a certain. It's like not completely, you know what I mean, or follow. They lay down, you know what I mean. So so I completely agree with you, Kelly.
Yeah, that's the goal for me.
Yeah, awesome.
I think that's the goal for everybody. Like thinking that you're going to be a Steven Seagal,
it's not delusional.
The gun from behind and the gun in front and do this. Man, there was a super upsetting, horrible thing that happened recently in the jiu-jitsu community. It was a very famous athlete was murdered doing exactly the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, this is what I mean about like the difference between self-defense and real violence. If someone really wants to take your life or hurt you, they can do it, man. And it doesn't matter what amount of martial arts training you have. They will find a weapon. They will find somewhere. They will hit you with their car. They will do something. They will be able to hurt you. So this whole thing of like you being able to like block bullets or do this or do it, like, man, it's just craziness. Yeah. And I think what you're saying is a real self-defense, is the composure and understanding of some amount of strategy of like, what the hell am I going to do to survive right now? How am I going to get out of this alive?
Better phrase is like self-preservation.
Self-preservation, I think, is a better. I agree. I agree.
And there's another thing too, like my entire life or whatever you see on a magazine, like self-defense, guys pointing a gun like this on you, you know what I mean? It's not in your forehead and another guy in your back. I don't know that move, you know? Like, how do you do it? You know?
But there's people that teach this stuff, man.
I know. That's the scary thing.
I think it's super dangerous, and I think it's super scary. And there's people that make huge careers off of this stuff. Teaching how to disarm people with guns and doing this and doing that. I don't advise that at all. Definitely advise like the practice of doing martial arts, and you know, if you get caught in that situation ever, someone grips your throat or hugs your head, you at least know how to react to some extent. But just the mental strategy of like, how am I going to survive, self-preservation kind of ideas, I agree with that big time.
And it needs training too. It's not just something that comes naturally.
For sure.
It isn't. As much as people think. That's why I think that fight or flight, like those are the only two options you have, is not true. I think there's a third option there.
For sure.
Probably the most common one.
Most people, some people talk about though fight, flight, or freeze. And you're probably right. Like, I don't know if it's got anything to do with sex, like you were talking about before.
Maybe it's personality.
Personality. Like if you're more timid or whatever.
I had a friend who's so disagreeable, and she wouldn't let someone touch her in the knee and say nothing. You know what I mean? So it is as well like
personality.
Yeah.
But maybe they like, you know, the sexes have got their, you know, things that they gravitate towards. But there's a bunch of people that would probably freeze, that if they, you know, did 3 or 4 years of jiu-jitsu, they wouldn't freeze like you're talking about anymore. Like you're saying, at least they would have
that's
the ability
game
to say
changer.
something or go, I've just dropped up, you know, at least come up with some other idea.
Way out.
So Kelly, you've been training for
5 years.
5 years now. So what, aside from like feeling more confident, you know what I mean? Like what are the skills that you actually, a lot of people, they come for a reason to start doing jiu-jitsu. They have that reason. And then when they start doing jiu-jitsu for a while, you know, after a few years, they discover so much other benefits that they can actually take to their lives, like, you know, and work or social life, social skills, or in professional, you can take to a professional environment. Is there any other skills that you took, like, you know, like for life, I guess?
So I think in the work environment for me, like, so there's a self-preservation side, which we've been talking about, but there's also the confidence side as well. So my job, I go to construction sites once a week or something like that, and I'm generally the only girl sort of there and stuff, and there is low-level sort of harassment every now and then and whatever. So it gives me the confidence to just like walk through that space, like, you know, with a certain posture and all that sort of stuff, and I think that's a great benefit for me as well. Generally, I'm a lot younger than them as well, so it just sometimes people can see, I feel like, me as a bit of a target in that sort of environment. I think. Speak to me in a certain way or whatever it is. So I think it's given me a lot more confidence in that sense as well. And as well, like, my job involves a lot of like negotiating money and things like that with clients and think it's given me a lot more confidence dealing with those people as well, and trying to get what I want, and sticking to my guns as well.
Yeah.
In terms of like, I'll have to do a fee proposal in my job, and I have to figure out how much money at the time it's going to take to do this thing, and just, all right, here's much I think it's going to take, just add a little bit extra in case something goes wrong.
Which is very common.
Try and get a little bit more out of it, So I think that attitude as well has come from, getting confidence and stuff.
So the confidence and stuff has helped with your negotiation skills and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's still something I'm working on as well. It's sort of one of those skills I learned later in my career, and now that I'm at that senior level in my job. So I'm only at the beginning of that sort of thing, I feel. But yeah, I think it's given me a really good foundation. I can see against my peers I'm a bit more further ahead in that space. And my boss sees that as well, so he's trying to get me in front of clients and dealing with them, and so I think they pick people who they view as more confident to deal with clients, because you don't want someone representing the business who's not confident in what they're doing or able to negotiate or anything like that. So I think it's really helped out as well.
Okay. That's interesting.
And the other thing is just like staying fit as well.
Yeah. But I think they all tie into it. So like the self-preservation stuff, the fitness and health, the clarity of mind, that all gives confidence.
Yeah.
Like the more you kind of like build in whatever area you are, like you build kind of like a foundation or a skill set or whatever, the proficiency leads to the confidence as well. Does that make sense? It's no different than for jiu-jitsu competition, for example. Oh, I don't know how to escape guillotines. Well, if I get caught in a guillotine, I'm probably not going to be super confident getting out of it.
Yeah.
But if I practice and rehearse the guillotine and I build up all this proficiency in all these different areas, like more confidence, feeling better physically, all these types of things, it leads to more confidence. Kind of like
it's exponential.
Exponential growth type scenario, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And we've only ever had positive stuff. Aside from the physical stuff of like, I got a sore neck and my body's beaten up a little bit from jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Like everyone, pretty much always talks about how much of a benefit jiu-jitsu is to their life, just like Joe Rogan and all the other advocates for Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So
it's really funny. Like a lot of people, I always do this question because I think it's very important to understand where the person is coming from when they arrive, as in what makes you start. There's no right or wrong answer. It's very personal. And at a certain point, there was Joe Rogan.
Yeah, which is probably about when I started, I think.
Yeah, it was the same, just so, And that brought me always, when I reflect on it, it was like, that was great for the sport, I have no doubt, because, his audience is huge, right? But it's interesting because all the points that he makes, I always felt that. Yeah. I train and like before Joe Rogan, much earlier than Joe Rogan, and that's how I felt, and that's how I think a lot of jiu-jitsu people felt, but it was so underground, didn't have the same audience, that it definitely, I would say he was the biggest proposal of jiu-jitsu. Aside from that connection that had Prior, that wave from UFC, he was the second and more pure wave that influenced people into starting jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, because he was always just talking about the benefits.
Correct.
The benefit of how...
And jiu-jitsu isolated, not to combine with some other things,
I think a lot of the people that came from MMA were more like, I want to be like, powerful and aggressive and a good martial artist and stuff. Whereas like people listening to the Joe Rogan stuff or just like other people speaking about it was more like, I want to improve my life. I want to advance in my life.
This sounds great. What is this?
Yeah. What is this thing that he's so fanatical about and how amazing it is and improve his life in all these aspects?
Yeah.
I have another question that I never really thought about this because I don't think I've ever considered this ever, for me anyway, but is there any, I know jiu-jitsu is difficult and there's been a lot of people that have left throughout the years of being a coach here and all these things like that. Has it ever crossed your mind, or have you ever thought about stopping jiu-jitsu at all ever? Or are there some particular areas of jiu-jitsu that become really difficult, that are frustrating or hard
not
to
really.
deal with?
I think because my approach has always just been steady.
Yeah.
Because I'm not my aim isn't to be a competitor or the best at the sport or anything like that. I've never been really great at any sport really.
Yeah.
So I've always been comfortable at just being kind of average and slowly progressing through it. I haven't had this addiction to it.
Or pressure as well. That can put a lot of pressure on you to perform at a certain level. I think a lot of people stop because of it.
That's it. And I never went like 4 times a week for a month or whatever and burned out or anything like that. It's always been sort of consistent 2 or 3 times a week for the last 5 years and stuff. So, no, I don't think I've never had that feeling of wanting to stop.
That seems to be a better approach and pathway for sure.
It's very interesting, Kellie. That's a very interesting thing. Because a lot of people, they started and they want to get better in 2 weeks and they want to come 14 days in a row. You know what I mean?
And that's the funny thing that she's saying too. Like the people that have mentioned like, oh, it's hard, no one to quit. They have put a lot of pressure on themselves and they do the exact opposite in exactly what you're explaining. They're writing emails, 4-page emails about how they're going to be a world champion.
Yeah, they want to be a world champion in 3 weeks. Like,
like this has changed my life. It's been a month or whatever. Which is great, but like, there's the realistic side of it too, where all right, it's changed your life in a month.
I've been doing it for 30 days, that changed my life. Now I've been doing it for 40 days and changed completely my life again.
Try doing it for 5 years. So,
how many transformations can you have? And still be gratified. You know, like,
you keep raving about, you lose all your friends. You know, after 5 years.
At some point, the obsession like fizzles out. You know, so you kind of just gotta keep a level head about it, I think.
Yeah, I agree. But I think the problem with the obsession for them though is it's like the emotional kind of like excitement.
I think they have an addictive personality generally if they're like that. You know, like if it's not jiu-jitsu, it might be something else.
Very true.
You know what I mean? Like,
I know what you mean.
And maybe
very true.
Maybe like you're saying, once the initial excitement's gone, that's when they do stop doing jiu-jitsu and go to something else or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it can help. I think jiu-jitsu can help to change the stuff too, though, if they fall into like a groove.
Yeah. Because
either you're going to get injured, you're going to get too frustrated. Like, there's been a bunch of people that have left here because they haven't got the belt they wanted in the time they wanted.
Oh, really? I've always wondered what's the general consensus for people stopping, like, at any level, or is it different reasons at different levels? What, you know?
So, some people that, like, I mean, there's different reasons, obviously, you know, but there's some people that they get hurt because they you know, they try to force so much and they go too hard, they burn themselves. And what every injury, what actually tries to show you and can help you is actually to change a little bit of game, you know what I mean? To bring things a bit more in perspective. If you use an injury, you can actually get better in jiu-jitsu. Because you have to develop other areas, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of people think, because you're going to get injured, like in your office, you're going to get, you know, oh, my neck is sore. You can get injured doing anything.
Yeah.
But people don't take the time to kind of learn, you know what I mean? Like, and change their approaches, you know? The mindset is one of the most important things for every human being. Do you know what I mean?
I think, too, sometimes people are almost looking for an excuse to stop.
Yeah.
So when they get injured, it's like, oh, this is great. Now I have a reason.
Now it's perfect. Yeah. And you have people that they get injured and come back after many years and like, oh, I wish I never stopped. You know, you have all the
I still think there's commonality to it, though. Like you were kind of saying before, like, I think people that achieve the rank of purple belt are generally going to do it more long term. Like, whether they get injured or whatever, they come back. I think a lot of people that quit within white to blue belt, they don't return. I think a much smaller portion of people return if they quit at that age range. Not age range, that like belt rank.
Yeah.
And I think you see a lot of stuff to do with age as well, though. Like a lot of the people that are kind of like excited and their life's not stable yet. They haven't like found a career.
We talk about this, They're a bit younger, you know. What's the trend right now? Well, they're
still figuring out what they want to do, I suppose.
Yeah, but whatever is new, whatever is like popping up everywhere on social media that, you know, that everyone's doing now, it's like, you know.
And jiu-jitsu is that, but the problem is jiu-jitsu is hard too, and that's something that they don't talk about on a lot of the stuff. Like, jiu-jitsu is difficult to actually get good at, and it's like anything really. Like, if you truly want to get good at stuff, it's going to take time, it's going to take effort. You're going to have to be determined and persevere through, you know, hardships and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of people don't want to deal with that because what they want is the back end of what everyone talks about. It's like, jiu-jitsu is so amazing, my personal growth,
change my life.
Benefits. But those benefits don't happen in that three-week period. Those benefits happen over long term of doing anything.
Yeah.
So, like, exactly the same thing. When it doesn't happen or they lose that initial excitement, this is the same to do with relationships, business, jiu-jitsu, career. I want to be an architect, and then they become an architect, and they're not designing these fancy houses. They're designing like
a toilet.
a toilet, or
that's what they do.
you know what I mean, or just like generic homes that are all the same. The build's all the same. You're doing all this and that, whatever. I don't know, but it's not the glamour that they want. Or if they're a physiotherapist, they want to work with athletes and doing this stuff, but they get a job in a hospital helping old people that have had a hip replacement. Like the realities of what people like compared to their idea or their fantasy are so far removed that people have a really hard time actually persevering and going through the things that are actually existing in the world. I want to work with the Broncos. Man, you just graduated as a physiotherapist. Why are you going to work with the Broncos? There's only one job or two jobs with the Broncos, and there's 10,000 people trying to get that job. Why are you going to get there? I find people are extremely deluded based off of all this stuff.
When I started uni, I wanted to... Well, when I left school, I wanted to be a fashion designer for like my whole life.
Yeah.
Anything creative. And then I got convinced not to do it. My dad's like Greek friend. Like, it's so passion, but you make no money.
There's some reality.
I was like searching high and low, what am I going to do? And then I didn't even hear like what architecture was, I think. Everyone sort of generally knows, but not the word for it, I suppose, in building designer. And then, that sounds creative and you make money from it and all this sort of stuff. And I didn't quite get the grades to get into the course, but there's landscape architecture, which is the same thing essentially in the first year. Same courses. So the idea was that I would do that, and a lot of people do this. And then bridge over to architecture. But my majority of my lecturers in landscape were architects and became landscape architects. So I was like, okay, I see a sort of trend here. And then I think it had like the highest dropout rate of any uni degree or something like that.
Architecture?
So, landscape architecture. And I started like 120 people or something like that. And by the time I graduated, it was with 12 people. So, it was, and I sort of like, I've always had this like, kind of observe other people and what they're doing, and if there seems to be some sort of like facade here that architecture in this instance was this like glamorous job, and it's
but there's
not,
people
like,
coming back over to the other stuff
exactly,
that was less glamorous.
because they realise that you don't get the lifestyle balance that you do with landscape, for example. Because it's not as grueling in terms of like getting qualification. You don't have to have a master's to be a landscape architect or be called a landscape architect. And you don't have to be registered either. You can still do your job and not have those things. Whereas architecture is like really, you can be sort of at the level of like a doctor or a nurse, where you can like sign things. What do they call it? Like a notary or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, a lot of people aren't that happy in architecture as well, because it's so competitive. And actually, to design these amazing buildings, you have to go through all the crap before that point. You have to design toilet blocks and all the boring stuff.
Just with this mindset though, like, have you always had this way of thinking, or is that something you developed through your parents or like people around you, or what? Because I would say that a lot of people kind of get lost in the fantasy kind of thing, like the self-defense stuff, like wanting to be a, I'm doing it because I want to work with athletes. There's so many. I wanted to do that at some point. Like, I want to be a strength and conditioning coach for this and that, because I like working out and da. And like, and then you talk to people that actually do it, and they're like, look, I've been doing this. I've got this many degrees. There's like 15 jobs working with professional sporting teams. Like, it's unlikely you're going to be a PT.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, a heavily overqualified PT.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it like. Why are some people able to like kind of notice realities like you're talking about? I've always been able to observe and assess and stuff like that. I would say that most people don't think about much at all, ever. They don't analyze anything. Yeah. So is that something that you always had, or is that something you developed? Like, how?
No, I don't think it's developed. I think it's just my personality. Like, I was never the person to be asking the questions. I would watch the other people ask the questions and then think about their answer. You know what I mean?
Be observant and patient is super important. And nowadays they promoting the act quick. You know what I mean? Everyone's doing. Oh, that must be cool. Wait a second, what?
Yeah.
Sometimes the best thing to do is opposite of everyone's doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Oh, this train, I went boom.
Or I've always been one as well to actually take someone's advice, not just ask for it and then do the opposite.
Yeah.
So when like watching my lecturers go from architecture to landscape, I was like, ooh, there's a trend here. It's not that they had to say anything to me and be like, don't do architecture. It's that I just thought, why are people leaving architecture? They stay up, they do so many all-nighters. I never did an all-nighter in uni. Other people did because they didn't have the time management skills. And I was like, why am I going to make myself tired and stressed and unhappy just because I don't have time management skills? Just manage your time. So that fixes that solution. I never had this attitude of putting unwarranted suffering on myself. I don't see the point in doing an all-nighter. And I don't see that my work is really good in the sense as well that there's not this culture of having to get into work at 6 a.m. and leave at 9 p.m. You know what I mean? We're not working over hours. You get to work on time and you leave on time. And you're not being stared at for leaving early or anything like that. If you can do the work that you have in the time that you have, then great. Yeah. That's what we're paying you for. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I've always had this attitude of not making things too hard for unnecessarily hard for myself. So I think that deters a lot of people from things when they get obsessive and all that sort of stuff.
Very good.
They get injured or whatever, and then they get discouraged, and that's the end of it. So
aside from that advice, which is actually very, very important, what other advice would you give to someone that would like, for their personal reasons, would like to offer Joe Rogan, clarifications, would like to give it a go and start jiu-jitsu? What would be your advices? They just started.
Yeah, I think do it for yourself, even if you have to come with someone and, you're not confident enough to show up on your own or something like that, that's fine. But I think the reason why I really love doing it as well is because it felt like entirely my decision. Yeah. It wasn't because my sister was doing it or whatever. So, I think figuring that out as well. I don't, it wasn't an impulse for me either. I've been listening to him for a few months before I even decided to start looking for somewhere. Yeah. So it wasn't I listened to one episode. It was I'm convinced. It was a
well thought out decision.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, which
you
is
weighed up and observed and analysed.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So, and I think, in particular for girls, if you actually really want to learn self-preservation, do it. You know, actually go and learn how to do it. Don't read advice from other women on the internet about carrying your keys between your fingers or scratching someone's eyes out or something like that. That's not realistic and doesn't help you at all. So, I think just seeing through that sort of facade of, this bad advice that gets given to girls and how to protect themselves and all that sort of stuff. So
a lot of bad advice. A lot of bad advice in the world.
And
now.
It seems to happen every time there's some sort of incident or whatever. It's just uprising of it's their fault, not ours or something like that. So there's a little bit. If you want to do something about it, do something about it. So
the advocacy of things a lot of the time is just wasted effort.
Yeah, they feel better by just saying something rather than actually
they feel confident by
something.
listening to
it. Yeah. I think this is very common. I think this is a modern kind of situation thing. It's you kind of encouraged to complain or blame or be the victim or advocate for something and scream and yell and do all this stuff, but you don't actually apply or change anything in the world or in life. You can believe whatever you want, but I don't see how gluing yourself to the road and saying I'm fighting against global warming and you still have an iPhone and you still drive a car and you still do all these things. How are you actually contributing to your cause if you're directly contributing to the opposite? You're still buying iPhones from China. You're still doing
Yeah, I was sick of this whole let's, fight against this thing. But then no one actually did anything.
Yeah. It's all on the mouths and
exactly.
That's the problem with the modern world now. It's about how you appear as opposed to what you actually are, and this is the part that everyone's having a hard time navigating. Yeah, because there's people selling courses on how to do women's self-defense and teaching you how to do chi blasts and takedowns and do this and do that, but it doesn't really work and it's all bullshit. But that guy's happy because. He just is empowering people. No, you're deluding people and you're making them feel good. You're patting them on the back and saying how good and strong they are. But you're damaging them because if something really happens, they're not safe, man. Yeah.
I think the other thing too is girls pick sports based on what kind of body image they're going to get or how they're going to feel about themselves doing it or whatever as well. So I don't want cauliflower ear. I'm not trying to avoid that as best as possible. But, you just work around it. Don't crush don't try and get crushed by people. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
play your game a little bit safer, protect your ears, protect your head or your neck and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah.
And I think that, like, boy, you and many other girls nowadays, like, they are great examples that, boy, jiu-jitsu, you can be super feminine. Like, I think it's a super technical sport. You know what I mean? I learned that, like, a while ago, like, jiu-jitsu, ladies training and competing in jiu-jitsu, it's in any sport, actually, it's so technical, you know what I mean? Because they don't have as much power and strength, you know, most of the time. So it becomes super refined, you know what I mean? So I think that you can be, like, amazing, beautiful and trained jiu-jitsu, you know what I mean? Like, and I think you're a great role model. Like, a lot of people don't understand that, and I try to enlighten that to people. Like, once you start to become a purple belt and forward, you become a role model for a lot of people. So when you see yourself, you know, Jazz, you know, Lauren, you guys you're a role model for all these 12, 13, 14-year girls that are looking. And I heard that before from their parents. Like, they go, they worried about, you know, like, the image of jiu-jitsu, but when they saw that person, you know, or the other girl, they felt, because they also look nice, and then, you know what I mean? Like, they just felt comfortable about it.
It seems superficial, but it's really what girls, that's how they are.
Well, think about it,
But that's like an evolutionary thing. There's nothing.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think there's anything, like, I'm not ashamed that I still want to be pretty and do jiu-jitsu, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And that is very important, like, being a role model for teenagers, like, and it's super important, you know, because the time when they form in their character, they form in their personality, and they can have someone that they look up to. And jiu-jitsu allows them, like, there are many times now that 13s having a chat with Jess or having a chat with you, for them that's super unique.
And they're learning too that they don't have to forego their, like, personality by doing a certain sport. You know, it's not even just jiu-jitsu, it could be anything. If it's perceived in a certain way, you don't have to actually embody that, you know what I mean? You can just be whoever you want to be.
Exactly.
And participate in this activity,
Yeah, exactly.
I think that Fionn Davies, she won the ADCC over the weekend recently, but she said some statement a while ago, so she's like a pretty well accoladed Brazilian jiu-jitsu athlete, and she said, like, there seems to be a shift, like, the people that were kind of, like, admired and put up, and, you know, this person is amazing, you know, the Kim Kardashians of the world, and people that were kind of do
you remember when I asked you who this Kim Kardashian? I don't know.
You don't know.
I'm lucky ones. I'm one of the lucky ones. I still don't know.
But these people,
the lucky ones.
I know, but these people that are kind of admired for, like, real degeneracy, like, they're looked at as, like, amazing women and business people, and it's like, wait a second, this person did, like, a sex act online, and that's what made them famous. Like, there's nothing admirable in that. You know what I mean? And she made a statement. She said there seems to be a shift happening, and people are getting a little more awareness and more understanding, and they're kind of realizing, and they're not celebrating these degeneracy style women as much. There's a little bit of a shift happening. There's people like, I want to be like Fionn Davies. I want to be like Bia Mesquita, another high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu athlete, who is, you know, a pretty feminine-looking woman, but still goes and does, like, you know, something that's hard and difficult. And I don't know them personally or anything like that, so I don't know what their personality is like. But I think that's interesting, like, that as more women do these types of things and do well and stuff and still behave femininely and kind and polite. There was another woman that beat that Gabby Garcia. I forgot her name.
Yeah, I saw that fight.
What's her name? Ramos or something. But she was like, I think she's quite religious, and she was just like, you know, my whole thing was just about to see if I could do it. I just wanted to see how good I could be. And, you know, everything for me is about community and my team. And, you know, it's been such an amazing experience. I thank everybody that's helped so far. You know, it's amazing. My team is the best. I have so much support. This is amazing. And just such a genuinely kind, feminine person that's not degenerate at all, that goes there and does the hard work and wins a world championship, and well done to her. And I think, like, the more, you know, girls that watch that stuff that are in jiu-jitsu, the more they want to emulate that type of behavior, as opposed to being some extremely seductive, degenerate kind of person that, you know, advertises their sexuality all the time and has, like, this really short-lived kind of fame and for stuff that probably isn't so impressive. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
It was funny that in high school, there was this girl who was in year 12, I think, when I was in year 8, and she was like a freak, like intelligent.
Yeah.
She was in uni when she was doing high school.
Yeah.
Like, it was just incredible. And every time she got some sort of award or something at school, she would get this roaring applause.
Yeah.
She was so admired, and she wasn't that attractive or anything like that, but like the school fostered so much like value in intelligence and setting goals and like really high achievement and
merit.
stuff. Yeah, all that sort of thing. So I think as well, it just depends on who you hang around too.
I've had this conversation with a few people, and I think you're right. The problem is like a lot of people don't have good influences or good values, or they don't have a strong enough influence. And I think what happens now is like, if your parents or your school or whatever organization you're involved in, if they don't implement the values that they have in the people around them or the young people in the school, whatever, you're going to be affected by the programming of society.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the programming that's given by society is not about what's best interest for you. It's about what's going to sell the most, whatever.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So I think a lot of the psychological value stuff, all the moralistic type of things that people take in if they don't have a strong influence is a really degenerative shit. It's about all this like panicking to do this. Oh, everyone else is doing it, I've got to do that. They don't have like strong core values where they can just sit and look at things and go, well, actually, like you said, that doesn't look right. I'm going to go over there. If your strongest influence is society, like, I'm sorry, it's not always positive for you. If your strongest influence is good parents, is good schooling, is good people around you that went to the same schools, or another organization might be a jiu-jitsu club or whatever, and there's a particular moral kind of code that's implanted in that organization, and that's the strongest thing that you deal with, then you're going to be like that. Yeah. But if you don't have that influence, man, you can really go far left, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu, I think, has another quality in this aspect of helping to foster good people, good role models. There's no mirrors. There's no like, there's no like, oh, my hair, which is a big thing, like, and how do I look now that everyone looks the same? Everyone's
like the whole thing is like
correct. Like everyone has. There's no jewelry. There's no difference on the material level.
Yeah.
All right. Everyone has their hair everywhere. Everyone might be sweating. Everyone is working hard. Everyone is making mistakes and having a laugh because that's how you get better. They fostering good values even without having the social gatherings. You know what I mean? The social.
There's no like
bling blings of life.
Yeah, the sportswear or something.
Yeah.
Is
Correct.
Not made to look like
my
anymore.
one is this one. My one. Yeah. Correct. Correct.
To show off their figure, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct. Yeah, everyone's in uniform, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And you are sweaty, you know what I mean? Like you've actually worked out, you just put the outfit on and like gone shopping or something like that.
Yeah.
So
that's very true.
That's funny. No mirrors in the gym.
But Kellie, thanks so much for your time, and I thank so much for being part of the gym. I think that was it's really rewarding to have people like yourself, and I super appreciate that. We super appreciate that. Again, I think you're a great training partner. I think you're a great role model for a lot of these teenagers, and hope another 5 years to come, you know what I mean? We'll have another chat.
Maybe I can get in contact with my school and actually do a proper demonstration.
I can do a self-preservation.
Yeah, that's it.
Very good.
Good on you.
Cool.
No, thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything else you want to mention or say or anything like that?
All good.
All good? All right. Thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. Of course. That's it.